Welcome to the Au Jus. I'm your host, Beef Loaf. This show is being sponsored by our friends Punky's Pizza and Pasta, located at 2600 South Wallace, my personal favorite eatery in the neighborhood. They have the best selection of pizzas and pastas as well as sandwiches and salads of any spot in Bridgeport. Currently, they have a terrific Monday nights only special. One medium cheese pizza for $12.99. No promo codes, no minimums. Just place the order after 3 p.m. and you get one medium cheese pizza for $12.99. You better hurry up because it's they'll close in a couple hours. Toppings can be added for their own prices. Hit the website, punkyspizza.com, for all your carry-out or delivery needs or to cater your next party. You can also call 312-842-2100. The Scarlotta family will take care of you. Punky's Pizza and Pasta. This show is also powered by you, loyal 108 supporter. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Feel free to tickle the undercarriage in the process. Like, comment, turn on notifications, and most definitely super chat. That's how we get paid until we continue to make the content you know and love. Tonight's guest, he's a founding editor and senior columnist for The Athletic. And the last time he was in Section 108, My Sock Summer threatened him to get the fuck out of his seat, thinking he was someone else. John Greenberg, welcome to the Au Jus, my friend.
Thank you. And you know, it's my mom must Google my name because that came up when she Googled it, that My Sock Summer thing, and she was like,
apology.
She was like really confused what was going on. So
that was
an
funny.
awkward thing to explain.
That was funny because he does that. And we're like, oh shit, and I'm looking at him. I'm like, you don't know who that is because you have a passing resemblance to a very good friend of mine in Teresa's, a guy who we grew up with, and we we don't hang out with as much anymore because we get older. But like, you have a passing resemblance, and so you leave, and then like a few innings later, I ask my sex, do you know who that was? He goes, that was your friend so and so. I'm like, no, that was fucking John Greenberg. He's like, oh shit, oh my god, I can't believe I did that to this guy.
When I saw it, I forgot he said that. Like it didn't like. I just screwing around, right? When you go into Section 108, you expect shenanigans.
Exactly. Something goofy's about to happen.
This isn't like a luxury. This isn't a luxury suite,
and certainly not the press box. It's the polar opposite of that, I would imagine. So, let me get to a drink real quick right here. HBIC says have a good show. Thank you, HBIC. I'm having a little white wine tonight, John. I hope you don't mind. All right, let's and they're already pouring in. There's already any chance Speaks does the show with rotating calls. We'll get to that, Matt. Don't worry. We're gonna get there right a little shortly. But I wanted to open this up with Danny Parkins left the score last week. Not that I think a lot of people kind of could see his star rising and thought he might be on to bigger and better things. He's going to FS1 for a TV gig. John, where does Danny Parkins rate all-time score hosts? Where you got him?
That's a good question. You know, I mean, you kind of got a Mount Rushmore there, you know, of like Mac and North and Bernstein and Boers. And then you've got your Dan Jiggets, your Mully, your Hanley.
Yep.
You know, I mean, Lawrence, I think, would argue Lawrence over
a lot of longevity for Lawrence, for sure, you know.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot of guys. So I don't know if Danny really rates on if we're going to do the corny Mount Rushmore season of score hosts. Because he left he left before he turned 40. So, right. you really, I mean, he's above, obviously, like Mike Greenberg, but now people might think of him as Mike Greenberg, a guy that started on the score and did well national. You know, Danny could only hope to live like
that
Mike
life.
Greenberg lives.
Yeah, exactly.
Because my wife's like a huge fan of him, and we were just in New York, and we went to eat at a restaurant that he and his wife Instagram about all the time because we were in our hotel's in the same neighborhood I guess he lives in.
Okay.
So we looked up his place, and it's like Danny would do very well for himself if he lives the Mike Greenberg. My favorite Mike Greenberg in New York story once though is my buddy Nick Friedel, who used to cover the Bulls and was on ESPN 1000. When he was still at ESPN, he was walking home from the South Side, the Seaport in New York, and he and Mike Greenberg were leaving at the same time, and Nick was walking home, and Mike was walking because a boat was picking him up to take him to his country club for golf.
No, it's a good life right there.
It's a good life.
It's a very good life. Yeah, I kind of I kind of vaguely remember him on the score because I wasn't like a early like I'm probably in high school when the Monsters are on the air and everything. Right. When I got into it was Boers and Bernstein Golden Era, and for me that was like the best shit ever. I just absolutely loved that show. They did the humor right, the sports, all the things. Right. And so yeah, I agree with you. The longevity's not there, but I do think of him in the pantheon of those guys, at least for peak. I kind of think like the peak performance is right up there with them. And I thought, for a climate of radio that has gone less to humor, I think he kept that show more guy talk for in my personal opinion than most shows are doing these days.
He did a really good job of driving that show because you're right. He can do the guy talk. He can also do hardcore sports arguments.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't take himself. I was telling this to someone, one of our other writers, that he's a guy that doesn't take himself seriously in his job, and he has an ego, of course. But you can bust his chops a little bit, and you can have fun. And he gets like, like he's joking already, like when he hosted FS1 those days about all the Dak Prescott talk. Like you know what I mean? Like he sees the humor in it, and that's important. And I think he did good. And you talk about the show itself. I think it was a fun show. Yeah. Once they really got going with Shane, and Shane's obviously a little off the reservation.
I like Shane though. I like what he does.
I like Shane too. I like Shane too. I mean, and I think he's great. And Tanny with is obviously the master of sound.
Genius.
But you know what I like about that show? And I wouldn't grow up here, so I don't remember the glory days of the score. But my good friend is Jesse Rogers, one of the original producers there.
Yep.
And he was a Mike North producer, and he used to tell me what he liked then, and he doesn't like. They don't do as much now. Is when news was breaking, the producers would find the number of people and get guests on the show as news was breaking about them, and talk to them. And I feel like Shane does a really good job of that. When something's going on, he gets that person on the show, or he tries. Sometimes it might be Mike Clevenger's ex-girlfriend or ex-fiance or whatever, or his wife, which, that's a dicey situation. But mostly, but you know what though? You like the aggressiveness. It's talk radio. So
absolutely.
You're supposed to be on the fly.
And I like too that Shane has a Rolodex that goes way beyond sports, and so he gets a lot of non-sports guests too, and that really it adds to. I mean, it is talk radio as much as it's sports talk radio. It's talk radio in general, and people talk about all these different things, music and movies or whatever, and they have a varied interest, and so I always liked that approach. I was always impressed by it, and I was impressed by the way the four of them weave together. I had you mentioned. Parkins is, he's got an ego, but he can take some ball breaking. We invited them to come on our Festivus show. We do it in December every year. We do airing of grievances. Not only did Danny come on, we asked him for 15 minutes. He stayed for 45 minutes. But not only that, John, he showed up 20 minutes before his spot. So I've got him in the green room here in StreamYard. It's we're trying to hurry the guests along. We don't want to leave Danny sitting back there.
Yeah.
He didn't mind. He was just having a beer and just relaxing. So good man.
He's a good guy. He's a good guy. I wouldn't say anyone when he started was like, oh yeah, Dan, this guy's going to go on TV. He's got matinee good looks. Nor do I. So I give him a lot of credit for that. He built this up. I mean, yeah, he's friends with Nick Wright. That helps to get a foot in the door and have someone speak up for you and say hey, what about this guy? I've had that happen to me, different places where people would recommend me for things. Now, the things people would recommend me for would be covering a Northwestern football game for the Daily Herald. Not earning $1 million a year at FS1.
There's levels of this, John.
Yeah, there's levels. So, but he earned it. He did that 3 days or 2 or 3 days on Coward. That's a tough gig, man. Yeah. Doing a solo show or a show with a kind of a sidekick. But so I give Danny a lot of credit for making this happen because this was not meant to be. He made this happen on his own.
Absolutely, and you can see the range too of doing the show here, where it's a 4-man weave basically, and then he's got to flip to doing it almost a solo thing. Other times it's you could just see the talent bursting out of there, and so I'm really happy for him.
Yeah, me too.
All in all,
it cannot be. Yeah,
very cool.
Might ask him for a loan.
I mean, I think the days of us asking him to come on the Festivus show probably over, but at least we struck while the iron was hot. We got him in there at least one time.
Yeah, right. You can always say that.
Before he became huge, this guy was on the thing. Now, John, you wrote about potential replacement here because in the streets, everyone just they're happy for Danny, whatever. Now the whispers start coming. Everyone loves gossip. Who is going to take over the spot? And you wrote on The Athletic, and I think Sun-Times writer Jeff Agrest also agreed with you. Your number one with a bullet is Jason Goff. Make the case for me, John.
Well, I would just say because one, it's going to be it'll be a story when he comes back, right? Jason's, the way he left and things like that. But he's not he's not shy. He's good with opinions. He's well versed. He's loud. I mean, you want someone that's going to bring energy. You don't want someone that's going to be boring. So I think he would bring a lot of energy. I know some people don't like him. Some people do like him. That's great too. You want someone to be polarizing. You want someone they're going to listen to him regardless. I think Agras wrote just him and Spiegel coming back. I think it only should be if it's him and Lawrence.
Yeah, switch that
because
up.
that's like a fan. I was even saying it's kind of like fan service. It's like Deadpool, Wolverine, because people want that. People have wanted that show for a long time. Why
Right.
not? Why not try it? This is the perfect time to try it. If it
Yeah.
doesn't work, it doesn't work. But like, why not try it there? And then you would put like Bernstein and Spiegel. And then I said it's kind of like I wouldn't say this in print because I'd probably get in trouble. But like I said, it's like a Chicago neighborhood or Chicago segregation kind of, which I hate to say, but like because you have the Irish Scots in the mornings with Hod, Mulligan,
Yep.
Jewish guys,
and
then the African Americans, right? So like it would be very Chicago to split it up, but like obviously people don't want to do it like that. Like you want to mix things up, but I think those are natural pairings to have keep Mully and Hod and then have those two other shows because Bernstein and Spiegel hosted together the other day, and it was good. I mean, they're so different from each other.
Right. I was going to say they're different from each other, John, and there's going to be tension sometimes because they butt heads, and they have in the past, even just transition or whatever. They get into it a little bit because they both think they're the smartest guys around, and when that happens, you bang heads into each other,
And I think that would be the issue, though. I would say with Lawrence and Jason is I don't know if they would butt heads.
That's probably
because
true.
they are good. They're good friends. I'm not saying they think about sports the same way and everything's the same because they don't. But they are good friends, and I do think they respect each other a ton. And like, so I do wonder what the dynamic of that would be like if they could pull it off 5 days a week. I'm sure they could because they're both really talented. But I do think they're going to split. I think it's not. I think they will, but I think there's a chance they split Lawrence and Dan because they're both can drive shows.
Yeah,
and they can be the drivers. So it would make sense to split them up.
I think they have some redundancies too in the way they look at things, and so it doesn't always lead to a show that like digs in on the layers of things as much as it could. So I kind of hear you there. With regards to golf, though, John, what about the TV money? Isn't that a deterrent? Wouldn't being on TV be a major deterrent for Jason in this situation?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I've heard he is interested. So I've heard that from people that know him. But it is local TV money, pre and post game money. It's not, Danny Parkins FS1 money. And Jason could do that. Jason could be a national TV host. I mean, I think that's something he should be looking at. So that's the thing. Like, does he want to stay? He has 2 jobs right now, but I think one job that would probably pay the same as those 2 jobs, I would assume, would be preferable. And like, I think I would guess with him, there's a sense of unfinished business.
Right.
The way he finally got the hosting primetime gig on the Score, lasted a couple years and then it was taken from him. So if I'm Jason, I would feel good about coming back.
Want to come back and spike the ball and like, look, Jimmy DeCastro can't run me off. Now I'm in and can really do the work that I wanted to do here. I could see that motivation there, John. I'm just curious, like because it could be like threading a needle maybe a little bit if he was trying to keep the TV job too. Like that seems like it might be a little bit difficult.
Yeah, especially if they let's say they move them to afternoons. Now I don't know if they would do that.
Right.
But like if they would, that would be impossible. Because you have to, especially when you have games on the East Coast, you've got to be there. Like, or he just like takes off, a half hour early, like Hawk used to do, to beat traffic. You can just do you can just have Lawrence. I mean, that's fine. Lawrence can talk on his own. So I mean, So it would be
actually works perfectly because Lawrence was a nighttime host who did it by himself. So I was like, hey, there you go. Last half hour is just you.
They could work that out if need be. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what he's going to do. We don't know. I know you want to talk about it a little later, but we don't know what's going on with that the new TV station.
Yeah, I was going to say the TV job. We think of it as like but it could be tenuous. We don't know exactly at this point. We'll get to that in a little bit. But when I get to this drink right here, Chuck Jancy, Loud Chuck says had to turn off the DNC convention when they tried to do the wave. Right, Chuck. He says,
love Chuck.
Hi, John.
I love Chuck. I interviewed Chuck after his terrible accident when I was like. I think I was in New Buffalo with my family, on the porch of like this rental house, talking to Chuck about that. What a terrible man! God, thank God he's okay.
You got so lucky, man. Yeah, absolutely. We had him on 108 podcast right afterwards, and like we felt sheepish about reaching out to him because we're not real media, John. And so my Sox were like, should we reach out to him? Is this in bad taste? Probably. We reached out. Chuck was in the hospital. He messaged back. He's like, yeah, I'll come on as long as I'm out of the hospital. So, but we've gone on road trips, Sox road trips with Chuck. He's the man.
He's a real dude. He's, as kids would say, he's a real one.
He's a real one. That's right. Absolutely right. So, all right, let's get on to some potential other ideas to fill out this Score lineup here. I know you wrote about some other ones. Start shooting from the hip. What are some other ideas you got, John, about if Goff doesn't end up wanting to take this job, what directions are we going here?
So I would say you still pair Bernstein and Spiegel, and then you have, I quote it, like, instead of, remember Cap and Company, like Lawrence and Friends, because Lawrence has all these friends.
Yep.
The people that hosted with him before. He's got Layla that comes in once a week, at least. She comes in. I feel like she's there multiple times, but at least once a week. So you've got her. Let's say Jason doesn't want to do it, but wants to come in once a week. Then you have a special day you can market of Lawrence and Jason. Maybe you mix Aunt Heron in.
Yep.
There's a handful of other people.
Yeah, you can throw Grody in there or someone like that.
I love
roster.
Grody. Yeah, I love when Grody hosts. So you could do that, and that's honestly, frankly, probably a much cheaper way for a media company that's not exactly rolling in cash these days. So yeah, you could have a handful of people do it. So that would be another issue. I mean, you had some ideas. We were some local guys, you think, and I'll shoot it down for you.
I was gonna say, well, the thing that came to mind first to me, John, when I was thinking about this is like, would one of the original Barstool Chicago guys want to do this? And I'm thinking of White Sox Dave, Chief, Eddie, Carl, that group. And I thought of Eddie. Eddie Farr is like probably the most talk showy host guy.
Yeah.
My question though is that even a thing at this point? Like, would they even want to jump from that company over to daytime radio part?
I mean, I would say a year ago, no.
Mm-hmm.
I would say now, maybe, if the money was right, because I don't know, man, that Barstool stuff obviously does really well. Like, they built this insanely expensive headquarters, Dan Katz's palace.
I've been there, and it's quite a thing.
But Dave Portnoy had to buy it back.
Yep.
And for all the they're spending a lot of money, I think. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's more pruning down of that company in the future with Dave owning it and not Penn National. So that's a possibility. I don't know. I don't listen to their podcasts enough. I do know who you're talking about. I mean, I know who these guys.
Yeah, Eddie's more of a driver than anyone else. So he's kind of a driver, which maybe in this situation you don't need because you have a roster full of drivers at 670.
I don't know if those guys could do it though. In this kind of, it's not like it's so buttoned up, but comparatively, it is. Right. It's just a different animal. So I would probably say no to the Barstool Chicago guys. Maybe they could have a day, but I don't think Lawrence would really, or I don't think any of their hosts really mix well.
I don't know if they even know much about them, or if there's any mixing up.
I don't.
Another thought I had, John, was we're heading into the Bears renaissance right now. It's just going to become Bears, Bears, Bears. All the other teams down. What about just some random Chicago Bear that used to be on the team, like when they did Hampton Holmes, that failed 15 years ago or whatever, or Patrick Manley's 15 minutes that he was on there? Like, is there a former Bears player?
That's a great. Yeah, I should do an oral history of Patrick Manley's radio career. Like, no one remembers.
You should. It was interesting.
I don't even remember when it aired. So yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to think what Bear would want to do it. Like, guys that are in town. I don't think Olin's coming in. Maybe though.
Well, you never know.
Olin would probably be the one that could do it. I don't know if he could talk about other sports. That's the thing. You have to be able to talk about other sports. I think Waddle's, figured it out. He's been doing it since the 90s, basically, for WGN and then ESPN. Yep. Who else has really been good? I mean, at radio, that was a football player. I mean, Jiggs. It's Jiggs and Waddle, right? Yeah. And Yurko.
Buffon.
Yeah, right. But he just did. But
he was doing Bears materially. Yeah. Yes. I mean, he was mostly just doing Bears. I don't know. I just kind of thought, since everything's going to is swinging Bears centric this now with Caleb and then with all the other teams down, I just thought maybe as a dominant personality.
It's a good question. I'm just trying to think who would be good, but who has relationships. What is it? Corey Wooden does Chuggo. Cole Kmet's obviously auditioning for his future media career, right? Starting with the 85 podcast. Yep. And he's got the look of a guy that's going to go into TV afterwards.
Right. Exactly.
Chase Daniel's too busy. We're going to write him off. Mike Glennon, bring Glennon back.
What about Jay Cutler?
Yeah, I saw that in the Barrett Sports Media had that in there.
I was like, wait, what?
Jay's going to leave his 10 Tennessee estate
Right.
to host those afternoons of speaks.
Yeah, right.
That's really high on Jay's list of like, God knows what else this guy's doing. He's like living off the land and like he has like 5 different farms, but he's gonna give it all up to come back and like
just sit in a radio studio for 5 hours a day. I don't think that's gonna happen right now.
I don't think that's happening. Yeah, I don't know. There's probably a ton of other guys that would be willing to do it, but like hosting 5 days a week is a different animal.
Absolutely. It's not a half-hour studio show. This is like this is real.
I don't see Lance Briggs having the energy up to talk Cubs baseball in the middle of summer. We're talking Bulls.
Let's talk about this Bulls preseason game. Exactly.
Yeah, that's the thing is I just don't see a ton of this. I mean, like Kyle Long, obviously, but he's big time. He's national now.
Right. Yeah.
Kyle Long would have been the guy that could do it because he has energy and enthusiasm for other things.
Right.
So maybe we'll find another guy to do it. I don't know.
Maybe there's someone on the runway. Terry's Peep says, bring back Joe Kane. I don't think that was going to work out. And then Treezy says Glenn has a neck for radio. I would agree with that. He does have a neck for radio.
I don't know if those are Photoshopped.
The live stream of him would be hilarious, especially with the long, stand-up microphone. That would be crazy. John, what about any of the cast at CHGO right now? They have a broad roster there, and lots of drivers and non-drivers and such. Anyone there that you think could be a candidate?
I mean, like I would say of anyone. I mean, obviously Herb's been there for was at the Score forever, and he can host, he can produce. Same with Jay Zawoski, two great guys. I guess Luke Stuckmeyer, but he would be the one because Luke's really funny. If you ever talk to him, Luke's a funny guy. And he has that kind of like, almost like a Anchorman kind of look with his coiffed hair and stuff, or he did back in the day. Now he wears hats because I think he's balding. But no, Luke's
we'll get him a Maury's wig then if he gets in there. We'll get a Maury's wig for him.
Luke's super funny and like he could actually be a talk show host. Corey Wooten, like I said, probably could. He's a really smart guy. He could do it. Who else is on CHGO you think could do it?
Matt says Adam Hogue.
Hogue. I mean, Hogue can do anything, but Hogue's literally hosting like 17 Bears podcasts. I don't know.
I was going to say, he seems to be a little busy. He got
I said to him before, I'm like, what did you do? Or maybe I've just thought this. What did you do in life that you've been sentenced to hosting Bears podcasts? But now it's like a good thing. Now this year it's finally positive. Because like in previous years, like, you're really talking about this team on like 3 different podcasts. Like, how much is there to say? But now, but he set himself up because now the Bears are, they're America's team on Hard Knocks.
Well, that's why it's time. That's why it's time to get in on all the White Sox stuff because there's only one way to go but up, John. My guy, it's a good question actually for my guy Chuck Jancy. I had Julie Swike on this show a couple months ago. Any female candidates that you think?
Well, I mean, Layla.
Obviously, Layla, but Layla also has a TV gig, though. So,
Layla left her full-time radio shot for a TV shot. So, I mean, I don't know anyone else in town. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Because it's like people have jobs. So, Chuck has a good question where, the other female candidates, I don't know who else in town they would want that job, right? I mean, like, if you say, like, Julie DeCaro, you're going to have 75,000, like, people on Twitter like
it'll be
freaking out. Freaking out. I actually liked when Julie hosted the evening show. I liked going on with her. And I like going on with her and Maggie Hendricks. They're fun, but like I don't think that's happening. I mean,
that era is over. It's probably not.
Yeah, I don't think Julie's coming back, but I enjoyed going on her evening show. I thought it was fun. So the angry people that hate her on Twitter won't be happy with that, but I'm sticking by it. So Chuck, I don't know. I don't know anyone else I could really think of off the top of my head. But like all the women who do TV in town, obviously a lot of them do host too. Like Peggy Kaczynski. Peggy Kaczynski could do it, but she's on doing the Bears right now in the ESPN 1000. If Peggy wanted to do it full time with Lawrence, she absolutely could do it. Peggy'd be great, and she was on the Score a million years ago.
Right.
Or was she? No, she was on ESPN 1000 as an anchor. That's what it was. I'm sorry. She was on ESPN 1000. I talked to her for my afternoon saloon oral history, and that's where we talked about it. So,
which was a great story, by the way. I love that so much. Chuck says, "How about Joe Cowley?" Darius Peep says, "No more really smart guys. Find a meatball."
I agree with both those comments.
Mitchie says Trista Crick. I don't know who Trista Crick is, but
She was on Barstool, and then she's
Okay.
now on, I think, Odyssey. I don't know. You know what? She's not local, and let's be honest. No one wants to listen to someone who's not from here, unless it like Spiegel, kind of earned his way to being from here, right? Because he worked as producer, and Spiegel's also really smart and intuitive.
He was here long enough that it became okay. It was like, oh,
same with Waddle, same thing.
Mm-hmm.
He was here forever, and he worked his way into being a local person. No one wants to hear someone come in and tell. Like, remember when they were trying to have what's his name, the fast talking baseball player on all the time. I think he hosts with Tristan now. You know what I'm talking about? He talks really fast and loud, and they had him on. He was like an Odyssey guy.
No, it's not ringing a bell.
Someone will figure it out.
Someone in the comments will figure this out.
Right, but Joe Cali should have got a job hosting there when he was hosting before. When he was the Sox guy for a long time. He was their insider, and then he used to host a lot. Joe would be great because Joe has opinions. He's loud. He's probably more suited for that job than the job he has now.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I think Joe would be a great fit, and I thought they were gonna that was back when they were when Lawrence was like searching for a partner basically, and then they brought Hampton in. Like, I thought they were gonna pair Joe Cowley with him, and I thought, oh, Joe Cowley's gonna be great on daytime. You know?
Yeah, I should have put him in my list because Joe would be awesome at it. He literally would be really good. And he's also like, it's Cody Decker. That's the guy.
There it is. Yeah, Cody Decker.
He's like very fast talker. And I think Trista's kind of the same way.
Okay.
We don't need that fast talking outside.
This is
and
Chicago.
I'm not from Chicago, but I've lived here for 20 years, so
that counts. That's good enough.
I know what people like here, and you can't come in and fake. Remember when Sean? Do you ever remember Rosenblum and Salisbury and Rosenblum?
Yeah,
the worst. One of the worst shows in Chicago history.
Salisbury was doing it from somewhere else, right? He wasn't even in the studio here. It
was like his condo in like Dallas or something.
Yeah, so it was by himself in the studio.
It was an insane show. And poor Rosenblum got screwed. Steve's great too. I like Steve. He hosts a fun weekend show.
Saturday Suckage just needs to stay where it's a foundation show right there on Saturdays. You don't move it. You don't want to mess.
But I agree with Terry's peeps who said find a meatball. Yeah. Like, listen, the smart guy stuff. Listen, everyone likes intelligence. I'm not like a huge meatball or anything, but when I'm listening to sports radio, I don't need someone explaining math to me.
Right. But yeah, let's get to the jokes.
Figure out how to intersperse that stuff in your opinions. Do the research, and you can make an opinion someone sucks if you looked at their fan graph stuff.
Right.
But we don't need a recitation. This isn't a lecture.
Yeah, you don't got to read the website. I don't need to. You don't need you to read everyone's war on the team. It's just no fun. Mailman Jack says, "Is this the beginning of the Josh Nelson radio birth?" Thank you, Jack, for the drink.
Is it? I don't know. Yeah, maybe. Sure. Yeah. How about they bring the Sox machine hour, where they can just
let them guys go.
Right, really lean into this super popular team that everyone wants to talk about.
John, we're on the way up, baby. The sky's the limit now.
I mean, really skyrocketing.
It's like a penny stock. We're raring to go. We're ready to be bought right now. Okay?
Except it's like Boiler Room, and they're trading it.
That's absolutely right. Well, let's jump off of 670 for a second. I want to jump to CHGO for a minute. I recently had Kevin Kaduk on this show. Who was a great interview. He was a lot of fun to talk to Kevin.
Yeah,
good guy. And I asked him what was important. He said that building an audience one person at a time and creating community are the most important things inside those walls. How do you think they're doing so far, John?
Well, I mean, there's a big story out today. Did you see it?
I saw it, yes. But I knew that was the B shares. Yeah, yep.
Right, and I knew that was happening because I know someone who not K-Duck or those guys, but someone else who was talking to their owner and kind of filled me in and that was coming. And I also knew a guy from the Athletic was leaving for their Dallas, I guess would be theirs.
For the new
DLLS. Is that what it's going to be? So I mean, I think they're doing pretty good. I mean, obviously their Bears stuff is doing really well, and I know people that work there will say that's I feel like they think the people for other sports feel like the company's focus is 70% Bears.
Yeah.
Kind of 30% everything else, but they're still they travel for a lot of stuff. Mm-hmm. Travel for the winter meetings, they travel for the hockey draft. So you can't say they're ignoring the other teams, but I think their Bears stuff, and you can look at their numbers on their YouTube page. The Bears stuff does the best.
Right.
And it makes sense because they got Hogue. Now they've got Cole Kmet. They've just got, I think Braggs helps bring in a little bit of like psycho energy to that
I
mix.
love Braggs.
Right. Like, they're kind of nutty energy to it. So I think they're doing all right. I don't know how well, they have a lot of people working for them and it's expensive to do what they do.
Right.
So like financially, I don't know. And that doesn't whether they're, they could still be doing really well and content wise and doing poor financially. It doesn't make them a failure.
Right.
They're trying something new. I talked to Brandon Spano. When they launched, I did a not big story, but I did a story on them. And I talked to him. I went to their studio. So like, he's got an idea of how to do it. It's just tough. It's really tough to make that, paying all these people, salaries and stuff and benefits. It's tough to make it work, but it seems like with their fundraising, they're going to have a pretty good runway to be successful. Now, I really hope the Bears are good for all of our sakes. And I think it'll really help. It'll obviously really help them because they put so much emphasis into that stuff. So, yeah, I think they're doing okay right now.
Yeah, they seem to. Like you mentioned, Bears, but everything in this town, especially media, is Bears based. It's such a Bears town, so that makes sense. But they do have 3 dedicated people doing Hawks. They have 3 dedicated people doing White Sox. It's like they're dedicating time and people to the more tertiary teams. Sure. So it doesn't seem like they're being ignored at all. And these guys are doing. At least the White Sox guys I know they're doing 5 days a week. And it's like, holy shit, how do they even come up with enough to talk about 5 days a week?
Oof, that is brutal. Yeah,
we do our podcast once a week, and we've been cutting socks and more guy talk as much as the season goes on because there's nothing to really say.
Yeah, once Pedro got fired, that was it. What else you can talk about?
Wait till next year. Yeah, exactly. Well, there's one other guy. We'll get to him later. So we'll discuss that other guy later. John, if you're giving them some advice, kind of right now, at a point in time where they're at, what would it be? Because you were at the Athletic when the Athletic was coming up. It's you were one of the original people there, and it's coming up through this path. What kind of advice would you give them from your experience?
Well, my advice, I would have said, and I did talk to Kevin a little bit and talk about this stuff. They're doing a lot of these meetups at bars all over the place. Now, if they're getting paid for that, that's great. Or if a sponsor's paying for it. But otherwise, we tried to do that a little bit, and we found it's kind of a waste of time. Unless you're RSVPing and you're doing I think for their draft, Bulls draft, they had a really nice crowd. And I think they might have done RSVPing. But if you're doing that, that's the way to do it. If you're just telling people to meet you at a bar to watch a game, especially these teams suck so bad, that's kind of a waste of I think it's a waste of everyone's time, to be honest.
Tough to get people out too, yeah.
It is. It's tough. We found that out. We're like, oh, people love to go out. It'll be easy. No, it's not. Right. I would say writing wise, and I'm kind of surprised they never did more longer features. Because we figured out that we were trying to do too much of everything at first. And then we figured out people are going to subscribe because they're selling subscriptions. People are going to subscribe for the big features or for the analysis of your really in-depth stuff that you're not going to get anywhere else. Now, they don't really do that. And they just have their beat writers kind of, obviously chiming in on their podcast. They have to do all that and just kind of basic stories. Not saying the writers are basic at all, but just they're not doing the big in-depth features. I would spend more time on that, but that doesn't seem to be their plan. So they're they got their own ideas.
That's interesting. I never thought of it that way because a lot of people are kind of racing to be first, just say something real quick and get as many clicks as possible. But you're right, they're selling subs. And for a sub, you really want to get something. You want to get more meat, I guess you would say.
That's how we realized that. We understood it, but we didn't realize it. That's what I talk about with our owner, the guys who founded it. One of them especially, he and I were talking about. That's what we really wish we would have realized at the beginning. That's all we focus on instead of trying to have this many stories a day or like you said, jumping first on things. Unless you can really be first on something, but be first on something in a substantial manner.
Right.
Or
you're breaking the story, not you're the first to react to it. That's
or you do something where they hire someone that's going to just break news, and then what that does is it gets your name up there on the bottom line. If they hired, let's say they hired Shams away from us, and you have Shams breaking news for all city for all the teams, and then people have to credit him everywhere. That's content and it's marketing. So they've got Mark Stein now in Dallas. I wonder if Mark Stein used to be a pretty good newsbreaker as well as a writer. So I wonder if they're going to have Stein do that for the NBA and break news that has to get credited to All City. And then you've got people going to your site more. It brings
Right.
it in mind, right? It brings it to mind. So I think that would be I wouldn't be surprised if that happens.
Oh, that's excellent right there. Let's jump off CHGO and jump to what right now to me is still a mythical station. It hasn't started yet, but it's coming. It'll be here soon, and I'll be watching White Sox on it next spring, and that's CHSN. Do you expect the new network that is supposed to have White Sox, Bulls, and Blackhawks to look like a carbon copy of NBC Sports Chicago, or do you think the model will be something a little different, John?
Well, they're going to be using the studios at the stadium, at the United Center, so the look will be different, and there is different people in charge. I do think some of the head higher up at NBC Sports Chicago will migrate over, but not all of them. And they do have a new person in charge. If you go to their I was actually looking on their LinkedIn page the other day because it shows all the hires, all the behind the scenes hires, everyone that's updated their LinkedIn page at least. So there is a lot of different people, but a lot of people, from this area, a lot of stadium people are just kind of, getting a different title. So
Okay.
I don't think I would be shocked if there's a lot of programming besides the games because they got rid of it at NBC Sports Chicago because they said no one watches. Now, are they going to bring back a reporter show? That'd be great, or something like, other things. I would be shocked if they do like documentaries and stuff like they used to. They used to have a lot of programming, and then because then it just disappeared. Plus, it's expensive. I don't know how much they're going to want to pay for this. We don't know what the financials are going to be at this place. Who's what subscription tier are they getting on? How much money is Jerry and Rocky going to put up, or not Rocky? I'm sorry, Danny Wirtz. Yeah. How much are they going to put up front? To get this going? What kind of investors do they have? Is it I was just talking about it yesterday with someone and saying that's I need to start getting on this now because I've inquired before, but everything was kind of we really don't know.
Right.
Because there was no one. I think all the hires have been in the past few months, since they made the announcement. I was told the reason they made that announcement with no other information was literally to hire people. So people knew, they had. Hey,
we're open for business, kind of.
Right, right, if you're going to go to a new job, well, what's this place called? But I don't know.
Yeah.
So
Chicago Sports Webio is what it's called.
Right. I was talking to someone, one of the people that work there now, and he said it's basically been I've talked to a couple of people, and they said it's basically yeah, we're interested in you coming over. We want to just bring you over, but there's been no paper to sign, no contract. Okay. None of that. And I've heard that, Pat Boyle, I feel like is the only person that's been in talent-wise that's been announced.
Okay.
I don't think anyone else, but I think the broadcasters. I
haven't heard anyone.
The broadcasters are employed by the team, so they just come over.
Right. So they'll migrate over to wherever the game. Yeah, exactly. That was my understanding as well. Now, with the new channel, John, how much of this is opportunistic on the ownership's part, and how much of it is a necessity because of the poor play in the teams, and they just maybe wouldn't get the contract that they were looking for in their television deal?
Yeah, I think it's just that, and NBC wants to get out of this business. I mean, that's been pretty obvious. Comcast, whatever, they've wanted to get out. They've pared it down to only a few stations. So it's a necessity. I mean, they've got to figure out how to air these games in this market. You can't just go stream. I'm still curious how it's all going to work. What channels they're going to be on. I mean, you're going to have little old ladies looking for games. You know what I mean?
Yeah, looking in the newspaper to see what channel it's going to be on or whatever. Yeah.
Right. I'm real curious on how this is going to work. I mean, they've been. Everyone's saying, what these three teams that aren't, doing super great right now. But they've been it's been like this since the Cubs left for Marquee. So, you knew this was going to happen. People would, I always heard suggestions the Blackhawks might go with the Cubs. The Wirtzes will never leave the Reinsdorfs. And even if I think, and I don't, neither family's selling their United Center teams because those are cash cows. So I knew they weren't going to leave. But, and then White Sox are, until Jerry sells. Also part of it. It'll be, I'm I wish I don't think anyone really has answers on how this is going to look because of the money. We just don't know how they're going to spend. It's not Marquee doesn't spend a lot of money. I mean, they don't spend a ton. I mean, they have a lot of other programming and they've gotten help from MLB, but they cut the reporter show. That was a great show. It's paying us big bucks. Unfortunately,
That's it. That's what the comments want. They want modern day sports writers on TV. So Ian Eskridge says, "Bring back Bill Joust. We'll put a hologram in there. We'll get Bill in there. Don't worry."
Well, his kid. We'll get his kid. His baseball coach.
There you go. That's right.
Dave Joust. Dave Joust will do it.
He'll jump in there. That's right.
Maybe, and then maybe
carrying the score. Yeah, exactly right. Now, we're talking contracts. We're talking money. It's going to influence the teams. But they would be foolish not to have Ozzie and Chuck come back for White Sox pre and post, right, John? Or you could see them going in a different direction.
No, I mean, that'd be crazy. Like, literally crazy. Like, that would be – no one wants to watch the games. These people want to watch the post game. Right. It's such a wild thing, though. And I love it. I love Ozzie. I like him personally. I like him on TV. It is crazy that the manager of the White Sox has the former manager of the White Sox who won a World Series – who wants his job, commenting. Yes. And I will say, I said this to Chuck recently, like, I will say Ozzie's pretty good about it. Like, until that rant after the 20th loss in a row, he never, was that – he'll question Pedro's moves, but he's never that bad. I never felt he was that mean to Ricky either. Like, he was never that harsh on strategy. Like, he wasn't making it personal is what I'm saying. I thought Ozzie always as much as Ozzie doesn't always have guardrails, I thought he was being pretty professional about them. Right. After the 20th loss, though, that was amazing. When he went on that rant about being depressed because they said Pedro is better than him.
You didn't get the job because see, John, I thought in the Renteria years, he wanted that job way more. So I could feel way more like, he's breathing over his shoulder. But with Pedro, it's just been pure comedy because I don't think I think he wants the acknowledgement of like, hey, you could be the manager, but not really to be in there with that shit. Like, who wants to sit in that dugout every day with what's going on here,
I think last year, maybe before the season started, he was into it still, that idea of being the manager. I think going into this year, I don't think he was like, man, I wish I had this job.
Probably not, but I guess not.
It's, that's like, it is, Brooks Boyer once told me that, the president of the Twins, this was like a couple of years ago, they were playing the Twins and he was watching on their station. He goes, Brooks, let me ask you something. I was watching the post-game show. How is this on TV? Like, how are you guys getting – he was like, how are you getting away with this? Like, this is so entertaining. Like, it's way more entertaining than an RSN post-game show. Has any right to be.
Right.
Right? I mean, Marquis' show, no offense to Cole Wright or anyone on there, they're all nice people. It's unwatchable. And it's just like, because it's not what we want. It's too professional.
Right.
It's too it's too middle of the road. It's like, people wanted like Dave Kaplan's old Cubs post-game show where he's ranting and raving and getting angry. That's what Chicago wants. And I think there's a beauty to that authenticity and really watching like Chuck unravel the past few years. Has been great. And Ozzie needling him. And then you get Frank on there talking we're like.
Well, John, you're right. After the game, if you lost, you want, fuck this team or whatever. If your team won, you want to celebrate it. And they got both of the emotions there. And to me, Chuck is like the Ernie Johnson to Ozzie there with those guys, in the NBA inside the NBA show where he's a perfect compliment to Ozzie. He's just a perfect offset to him.
No, you're 100% right. And I think Chuck really found his role. He's done the hosting, he's done reporting for this TV. I think this is by far his best job and his best role. I mean, he's great at it. And you're like you said, he's a great, it's almost like sometimes you have to be an interpreter for Ozzie and you have to we used to see this a lot when we were reporters. Like, we had to figure out what he said sometimes.
Yeah.
Because you're trying to quote him fairly. And I remember one time someone thought he said the C word. And we were like, so we were doing group transcriptions. And someone's like, I think Ozzie, I was like, no, I would have heard that in real time. And it wasn't anything close to that. It was just like, it could have been isn't or something. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so we would do group transcriptions for Ozzie just so we made sure we had it right.
Love it.
But Chuck does a good job of seeing, his mood and understanding what Ozzie's saying and play, like you said, playing off of him. And it's just a great show. I mean, it's just fun and it's much better than the broadcast.
Well, here we go. This is what I wanted to get to this too, because Brooks Boyer said he already expects John Schriffen and Steve Stone to be back as a complimentary pair. But he said that, he said that, but Stoney was on 670 and said he kind of wasn't sure. Now, is that normal negotiating, you think, or just like Stoney realizing his age and saying, I don't know if I want to like trot this out there? What do you think is on Stone's mind? Or do you think they're going to be back together next year?
I think I'll probably be back together. I guess before that we went on today, I saw Daryl from San Francisco had talked to Stoney.
Okay.
And Stoney was more like, said he wants to come back and he wants to do more than another year. And he doesn't want to see. But Stoney, of course, Stoney is, I mean, like this is his life. Yeah. Stoney's life is baseball. But he is getting a little on in years. He doesn't travel quite as much as he used to. I wouldn't be surprised if he really cuts the travel down and does home and like the series he wants to go to, you know, or important series or whatever. So I think that's the issue. Otherwise, yeah, I mean, talk about Schriffen. I mean, like, you know, I mean, listen, the pylon is not great all the time, but I mean, I'm sorry, I just don't think it's a good broadcast with him. And it's not totally his fault. He's never called a baseball team like this before. I mean, I know he did Korean League and he's done some other stuff nationally, but until you've done a season with a team, you know, it's kind of almost unfair to put him in this situation. I mean, yeah, some people are like, you know, wonderkind that can just kind of like jump in and do it automatically.
Sure.
And he's got a great voice and he can obviously do a lot of sports, but it's just not natural. And it's a bad broadcast. It really is. It's a tough, I don't know, maybe Sox fans disagree with me. I'm not the audience for it. I'm a sports writer. You guys are.
Well, that's right. Well, this was going to be the question I was going to ask John, because he's been a hot topic, and it's been almost near uniform negative critiques from media, what I would call quasi-media, and what I would call wannabe media. And it sounds like you think that is. It sounds like you think that's fair. Like you think that the criticisms of Schriffen are fair.
I think some of it got a little over the top, like when Spiegel's flipped. And I'm not saying Spiegel has absolutely right to be mad about whatever he wants on a broadcast. I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
But I thought like the stuff with him mispronouncing Bill Veck, like that's not really a cardinal sin to me. People say stuff and he was reading it off a thing, like there was a chart. That to me was not something like, oh my God, I can't believe he screwed this up. But I think it's just a rough listen. And I don't think there's anyone. I think the tough thing, like when you want a really good baseball play-by-play guy, they know what's going on immediately. They don't need to wait for, you know what I mean? Like they might need to wait for a replay, but they have an idea. They know all the rules of the game. They know exactly what's coming before you do. Like you have that sixth sense, and you get that by doing a lot of baseball games. It doesn't just happen naturally.
Right.
You know, some ex-players are great at it. Steve Stone obviously was great at it from the beginning, probably. You know, I wasn't around for the start of his baseball career, broadcasting career, but I bet Steve Stone was pretty good from the get-go because he'd watched so many goddamn baseball games in his life.
He'd been in them. He'd been playing in them, you know, like
right.
Too, you know?
Right, and he just has that way about him. He sees what's going on all over the field. You know, Ozzy's like that in a way. I'm not saying Ozzy, I don't know how good of a Spanish game broadcaster he is, but like Ozzy was the guy that could have a conversation with a fan behind him and see everything that's going on in the game at the same time. He had that weird baseball kind of sixth sense to him. Right. I just don't. What's your opinion? You're at most games, but like the road game, what's your opinion on Schriffen? Like, I mean, and not like in a rude way. Like, just what do you think?
Yeah, you know, I'll be honest with you, and I posed it in that question in that particular way, John, because I see the media acting kind of differently than the fans broadly. Now, there are fans who cannot stand Schriffen, and some of it is they're pissed at the team that they let Benetti go, and that's fair. Like I get that, and they really like Benetti. But there are a lot of fans that didn't care for Benetti that much. They like the excitement and the way Schriffen brings a game in where it's not so technical. You're right about the expectation of a baseball play-by-play guy. And I think the expectation has been there because the guys that usually get hired are guys who've been grinding minors. Right. And then the play-by-play sounds like the play-by-play. And now Benetti's an exception because he's a little more eccentric and fun than the normal guy, and that's why that's why I liked him personally. I hate most of everything that I hear on the other channels. If I'm flipping through my MLB, I'm like, this is so goddamn boring. I can't listen to this. Right. You know, so I do like the level of excitement personally. From a technical standpoint, I think a lot of the nitpicking just started piling up. And yeah, announcers make mistakes during games, and you often don't notice it, but I think there was a lot of noticing it with John, and it almost felt like there was some, you know, there obviously were hurt feelings in the media. Let's be honest with ourselves. The Matt Spiegel's 8 minutes where he's talking about him, if I were John Schriffen, I would have told Matt Spiegel to pound sand too, because usually what you do on sports radio is you make fun of the thing. The guy screws up, you play the thing, you make fun of it a little bit, and to me, that's fair game. This was all like, oh, you're offending my baseball sensibilities and all this heartfelt. I would have told him to fuck off as well. I wouldn't, no offense, but like,
like when they were saying like that he didn't talk to them when they came into the booth.
I wouldn't have talked to you either. Like, I'm not shaking your hand either. Get lost. Like, what do you think's going to happen here?
I thought that was kind of weird that they were upset about that. That didn't make a lot of sense. Like, I think it was good that he did it. I think it was very big of Spiegel to go do it. But like, did he really think they were?
What was he expecting? Like, if he did get the reciprocation, great. It was great. But
this Schriffen, I know, did confront a reporter who's written stuff about him.
Really?
On the road, and this person hasn't. I can't say because this person hasn't put it out himself. But it was a very, very awkward conversation and like a weird conversation. Now, here's the thing. I think a lot of people think, and maybe some people are like this, that they're mad that they fired Benetti.
Yeah.
That's not, I like Jason, but like Jason left. Jason didn't get fired.
Right. It was, and he chose a better opportunity for him.
I think it's a tough thing to be compared to Jason. I think that's where the issue is because Jason was so good and he was a White Sox guy and he knew everything. That's where the comparisons. I don't think anyone's mad that someone else took Jason's job. We knew, like, if someone was really cool that took the job. Yeah, but I think if someone was really good that took the job, people would be like, okay, this guy's good too.
This is my guy then. Yeah.
Yeah, like, I mean, like, other people have left. And, like, when like, Stoney left the Cubs, people didn't hate Bob Brenly. And Stoney was a fate, right? Like, I don't know if I totally agree with that. I do think people think
I'm just saying what I see in the fan level.
Okay. And I'll say media-wise, I can tell you what it is Schriffen's, like, count for anything, but he's not like super friendly to people. I mean, yes, to some people, but like I know people have tried to like contact him like in that community and he just didn't return their text messages.
Just not interested. No.
And just like, just not interested. I texted him about interviewing him before any of this stuff went down, no response. And then when he did the haters comment, or no, maybe it was the haters one. I thought it was kind of funny.
Right,
so I was like, I wrote that in a text. Like, I thought it was kind of great. Like, like, it's like, is it a little much because the team was so bad? Yes, obviously, but like whatever, it's like you're trying to call games, no response. And I went up to him in the lunchroom and like, introduced myself again. We had met before a couple of times and asked if he wanted to talk. And he just like it was a very awkward no. And like, it was a really awkward no. And I was like, okay. Like finally it was like us staring at each other and like, all right, I'll see you later. But like I know people that is I don't think he's helped himself in that way of like ingratiate. Yes, he's done a good job of ingratiating himself with Sox fans, 100%, going to these tailgates and like I think taking pictures and being friendly. I think he's done a fantastic job of that. I think you probably should ingratiate yourself a little bit with the media and the people, not just the media, but the people that you work with, the people that work at your company. I think he could probably do a better job of that. But like that shouldn't like still shouldn't say like how he does the job. If he was really good, I think people would admit he's really good. I don't think it's the yelling that's the problem. I think it's the everything else.
It's the everything else. So you think less of this.
Okay, that's a little weird. Okay.
A little more technical baseball, would you say?
Right. I think he's gotten better at some of the technical stuff lately. And less shenanigans. The growling is weird. The growling's weird.
That's weird.
It's weird. I'm sorry.
It's like I like an occasional cartoonish thing, but that went on for so long and it was very uncomfortable.
That was uncomfortable. And I'll say this and this is not me hating him personally or anything. Yeah. The Tommy Pham call was one of the weirdest, most awkward calls I've ever heard. Yeah. And like I don't know what he was going for there. That was really strange. That was because it was just what and like. And also, what was also weird about that call? It didn't match what was actually happening because he was like, Contreras is barking back. And then they cut to Contreras and he was walking to the dugout. Like I'm sure he said something, but he was like, he was not that into it. Like, it was Tommy Pham flipping out. And Contreras was no one else from the Brewers was anywhere near him. That's what was so funny about it.
Yeah, I mean, that's
Remember the Tommy Pham era.
That's what. To fuck somebody up. You just he'll come for you, baby. And that's So I think some of it's fair, John, because he's not a cookie cutter announcer and he has made mistakes. And in year one, to me, some of that's forgivable, and I get it. But
and year one of calling the worst team in baseball.
Yeah,
that's another thing.
Unforgiving, right? All your positivity is getting shoved in your face because this team just can't. They go 3-22 to start the year. Like you ain't getting no break either.
But once that happens, you have to know in your head you've got to tone it down
and start
like you
backing
don't
it
have to
down.
be. It's not your job to shit on the team, but at the same time, like he would still like even like a few weeks ago, I heard him like they made some terrible mistake. It was that one where like there was like a bunt and like I heard it was the reliever kept sliding in and like Chucky Robinson couldn't get the ball. You remember
Yeah.
that? And he threw
Yep.
it wide, and he was like arguing with Steve that it was a tough play. And Stoney was just like,
He
no,
just screwed up.
this is like the major. You know, it's like
Yeah.
there was too much of that. Like, this is great. This guy's great. These guys are so great. Like, no, man. Like, just call the. You're just gonna have to call the game. They stink. You know they stink. I think it took him a little while too, because the one time I talked to him early in the season, very early in the season, when we knew they were awful, he was trying to sell me on. I'll just say I shouldn't say it, but like he was trying to sell me on. I won't say the player. He's trying to sell me on this player being like an all-star, and this guy's not an all-star. And it was like such a ridiculous comment. Like the other person I was with, we were just kind of looking at each other, and he's calling this guy an all-star, and I'm like, yeah, I hope this guy gets a pension.
Right? I was gonna say, nope, this guy's a backup catcher. I think I know who you're talking about because I heard it on the broadcast one time.
It was a guy that's not a catcher, but it was a guy that was like, he wanted to be an all-star, and I'm just like, I hope he stays in the majors long enough to get a pension.
So John, what's Schriffen's quickest path back to kind of silencing the critics, calming all this down, and getting back in favor on that side of the ledger there? Let's ignore the fans for a minute, but just like in the media, what's his quickest way back?
I don't know if there is, man. I really don't. I mean, I think just doing a better job. And I think, coming up with some calls that get played and that people have to admit are good. And I think in this town, people will. I think there's a sense of like, okay, I've got to be overly fair, right? I've got to like double back and like, okay, I've got to admit this. I don't think he's interested in being friends with anyone in the media. He's pretty much proven that. And I don't think anyone really kind of wants to at this point. Like now at this point, it's like,
that's it. It's over. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I don't need to talk to you. Like, and then he did that one interview with Merkin, and it was crazy. It's not to be rude to him, but he said some crazy stuff. You remember that one? That was the real.
No, I didn't see it. No.
It was in Merkin's newsletter. So whatever, like that, but it was the one where it was about the hate. He actually talked about the haters stuff. It was right when it happened. And he was saying like, all these people talking crap on us, we're going to show them what White Sox baseball is about. And it was like,
he's cutting a promo.
Yeah, right. It was like, one, you're not on the team. Two, if you are on the team, you would never say that because if you're on the team, you know how bad it's going to get. Like these guys knew. The guys on the team weren't like, oh yeah, we're going to show everyone how great we are. They're like, we're screwed.
We're in trouble here. Like,
so he did give that. I don't know, man. I think he just needs to focus on the game and just doing a good job and just preparing. He's got a full schedule, I'm sure, in the winter of basketball, and I've heard he's much better in basketball, and he's got probably some kind of. I know he does a lot of college football, and I've heard he's good at that. So I think just getting better at baseball and just like maybe watching old games and like going through it, like really, and like honestly, you should probably talk to some people in the business that do baseball and ask for tips because. I talked to someone a little bit. Yeah, I talked to like a young 30-something broadcaster about it one day when I ran into him and asked him what he thought. And he's like, what do you know about this guy? And he goes, honestly, like a lot of us in the industry just don't really know him. Like, and it's not rude. He's like, we're not trying to be rude about it. We just don't like actually know him. So I would say that would be my number one thing is he should probably reach out to people and talk to people and ask for tips and like, watch more tape and like just get incrementally better. It can't get worse than this year between him and like this team. It can't get any worse.
Get in the gym in the off season. It's you got to be a gym rat, basically. Equivalent.
He was a WNBA practice player, which I thought was actually a really
really
cool story. He was in Vegas, yeah. And I was like, man, you should talk about that. That's a neat story.
It's interesting, yeah. Right, exactly. Well, John, thanks so much for sharing your thoughts on Danny Parkins, the Parkins Spiegel Show, and their place in score history, Danny's potential replacement, CHGO, the new CHSN network, and John Schriffen. Remember, we ain't trying to be right on the show. We're just trying to understand. Do you have anything you want to plug before you go?
Well, do I get a Punky's Pizza like gift certificate for coming on? What's the deal?
If you want one, I'll get you one. I get the Scarlatas and hook you up. That is no problem. We can have that. Make that happen immediately.
I just hope I didn't get fired for it. I'm gonna have to check my Slack once I get off this.
Make sure you didn't say
anything. I didn't get fired for anything. Hopefully, Schriffen's not hunting me down. But no, I just read The Athletic, subscribe off my stories, whatever. But I hope everyone just keeps supporting you guys and like this. It's been a tough year, and you guys are fun and you have a good time with it, and it's positive as you can get. So,
or we just get drunk. Then that's the remedy if it's that.
Listen, that's why Brooks loves you guys.
We buy a lot of beer. Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I would be like your biggest fan if I was him.
I think he might be. Thanks, John. Take care, my friend.
All right, thanks for having me.
You got it. That was John Greenberg. That was terrific. I was so happy to finally have that conversation. Good to talk a little Schriffen there. So next week's guest is nobody. Mrs. Beef told me we got a tailgate that we got to go to for the high school. They're having a high school night, De La Salle night at the ballpark. So I'm going to be there. The following week is Labor Day. So that's September 2nd. September 9th, I'm going to look at my schedule right here. I think I have September 9th lined up. I do. I'm having Recovering Prof come on. It'll be the first time I'm having him on. That should be a good baseball conversation. He was kind of pro the Eric Fetty trade, so we're going to get into some stuff then. Thanks to all of you in the 108 comments, YouTube channel, drinks and tips. Appreciate all of you. And, of course, thanks to Punky's Pizza and Pasta. I love all of you. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on Thursday, 108 Podcast. Bye-bye.